Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery here. It's great to be with you this beautiful Wednesday morning. Today is October 15th, 2025. So we're pretty much at the midway point of the month. A great time for those of you that are resellers, branch offices, distribution partners to reflect. Are you on track? If you took what you've earned the first half of October, multiplied it times two, projecting what you'll make for the entire month, are you on track? Are you a six-figure earner? If not, we probably need to do something different. We know that we've got extra leads we need help with. We know that we're giving away landing pages. But nonetheless, if you're not on track, a great time to correct. We will not have a Zoom tomorrow. So most weekday mornings we do. We have an important meeting in the morning at 8 that conflicts, and we're working on hiring the additional attorneys, which we'll talk about when we get into our discussion today. So screen should be shared. 509 South Pacific, our almost daily Zoom, most weekdays, not tomorrow, not on Thursday the 16th. If you know someone that's just simply looking for funding, they can take advantage of the grant. They can go to entrepreneurstarterpack.com and plug into the grant, get the Shelf Corp that comes with the name, the entity, the business plan, the financials, and now they're including 20,000 of quick cash with it. So that's real easy there. If you don't have a landing page that looks just like Entrepreneur Starter Pack, you need to let us know. We're giving away the landing pages now if you want to be a reseller on the ESP program, the Entrepreneur Starter Pack. Our website is 509pacific.org. Our text support line, 903-347-8042. We post 99.9% of our past trainings on YouTube. If you need to schedule, a scheduling link. Our background, of course, hasn't changed. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We've applied for and received a grant. The grant has three mandates that we're expected, that we're required to follow, that we're held accountable through weekly documentation. Number one, we help improve financial literacy. For those of you that are resellers and or branch offices, what a great opportunity to go share the knowledge that you have with others. You take some of these great minds. We have 626 of you on this morning. You take John Stockton, Joseph Certain, Mr. Fink. You all know the formula for funding. You know how any entrepreneur can qualify legally and ethically for a large capital raise. But most people don't know that. And it may be simple for you, Carla Fountain. It's simple for you, Amanda Stanley, just to assume that everyone knows what you know, but they don't. So we encourage you to help us educate. The second mandate is giving away free shelf corps. And then the third is using that knowledge in those shelf corps to get funding. Today, we're going to have a very practical, down and dirty, in the weeds discussion of how it is we can pull this off, right? Because here we are, a nonprofit, and we guarantee in writing to every client a large capital raise. That is unusual. How would we do that? How can we do that legally and ethically and really? Well, we're going to break it down today, and it comes down to what many of us have discussed on prior trainings before, the three C's. So the first and most important premise that you and I can go teach anyone is this simple sentence. To get business funding, you have to have a fundable business first. You can't scam this, or you shouldn't scam the system. You can't game the system. If we want business funding, we need to qualify for it. Now, it's a little more complicated because there's lots of different sources of capital. They have different underwriting criteria. So there's not just one way to qualify, but we can't pass this and get past this rule. It's a universal truth. And you'll run into a lot of people, they want to ignore this. They don't really want to be fundable, but they want the funding. Well, that's too good to be true. So we need to start with setting expectations straight that this isn't too good to be true. We're going to help them legally and ethically have a fundable business. Now, the implementation of that takes place in two phases. One phase you're involved with, And truthfully, the other phase you're paid from, but you're not involved with. And so knowing your role as a reseller or a branch office is really important because it's going to help you have higher satisfaction and better results. So let's start with a pretty good place, right? Phase one. So if the rule that we're following is we need to help these people get a fundable business, then we are going to start with building that foundation. So the way that we do that is by giving away these shelf corps. So what we're going to do is provide them a shelf corp, and in about 7 days, within about a week, and that's normally what we're accomplishing, we're going to provide them an entity. Didn't mean to cross that through. We're going to provide them an entity in good standing. So it's in good standing at the state level, at the federal level, doesn't have any debts, doesn't have any liens, it's clean. Secondly, we're going to provide them for that business a good, unique commercial address because addresses matter. We're also going to provide them a pre-built business plan and 36-month financial projections. So they're getting that package, and then with the ESP, they're also getting 20,000 of quick cash. So that's phase one, the foundation. So the difference between our historical shelf corps, what we call the legacy program, and the new ESP is they both start with these exact same items, but the ESP comes with the 20,000 quick cash. The non-ESP does not come with the 20,000 quick cash. Each of you that are resellers or branch offices, you can decide which of those programs do you want to make available. Do you want to focus on the legacy program that doesn't include the quick cash, or do you want to focus or do you want to focus on the ESP? Two different landing pages, two different contracts. We can help you in either case. If you need help with that, contact the tech support line. Most of you are migrating to the ESP because obviously when you're providing them all of this plus 20,000, it's a pretty damn attractive proposition. All right, so that's phase one. That is what you as a reseller or a branch office do. Phase two, we do. But I want you to understand how it works. But phase one is what you do. So when you became a reseller or branch office, we provided you either an editable agreement that you edited and you're doing on your side, or better yet, you're using our landing pages, which we've had trainings on. With the landing page, our team builds out your e-contract. It's under your branding, so it's called private label, white label, and you pick the pricing. So there is a processing fee to process this for the client, and you determine what that is. You control the cost. You control how much money you make. It is up to you what the pricing is for phase one. All right, so are there any questions on phase one before we move into phase two? Let me ask, how long until they have mail forwarding? So with the commercial address, we provide a free commercial address. It's free for the lifetime of the business. All we ask them to do is cover our cost to forward their mail, which is a pretty reasonable request, right? So with that, we forward their mail once a week, and it's usually on Wednesdays. And in fact, today the mail will be going out. So mail is forwarded weekly, and typically it's going out on Wednesdays. We send it to whatever address that they tell us to forward their mail to. Okay. Any other questions on phase one? Because again, it's important to understand the construct. You are, if you're a reseller or branch office, you are the one contracting with the client for this scope of services. It's a private label, white label model, as I described. That allows you to pick whatever pricing you want. Some of you are charging $5,000 for phase one. Some of you are charging $500 for phase one, and there's other numbers higher and lower than those. But just to show you the great breadth, it's up to you. You control it. And so we have to do this as a white label or private label because there's going to be pricing inconsistencies otherwise. So this isn't an affiliate program where you're referring to us. No, we're your back office. We're providing the fulfillment. You have the contract with the client, you determine the pricing, we do the fulfillment. Okay, so there's phase one. Now let's get into phase two, which is the balance of our discussion today and really the meat of the matter. So, are you as a reseller or a branch office responsible for phase two? No. Should you know how it works? I'd say so. Knowledge is good. But really, should you be customer service for phase two? No, because you don't have access to our CRM. Should you, I mean, can you support the client and encourage them and be their advocate? Of course. Are you paid off of the money that comes from phase two? Absolutely. You're paid 5% of the client's capital raise. We're averaging around $1 million capital raise. So that's an average around 50,000 for you. So this is where the greater money could and should be made for you, but this is not what you do. So phase one is under your contract, that white label, private label contract, whether it be something you've done manually or through the e-signature with a landing page. This is us. This requires a higher degree of knowledge, sophistication, and involvement. We've tried pushing phase two out to the marketplace. We've tried having trainings and certifications, but it's usually not a good fit. So we're going to take care of phase two. You take care of phase one. So what is in phase two? Because is this enough alone to get funding? Actually, it is. There are some types of funding and financing that this is good enough. But is phase one enough to go qualify for these large capital raises that we're typically pursuing? No. Could we go buy real estate with just this? Yes, and we're an example. Everything that we talk about, we teach about, we preach about, we've done. And we encourage you to do it as well. You don't have to. But if you, as a reseller or a branch office or a personal testimony, it sure helps. So in our case, we followed this model. We got a shelf court, and within 30 days, we closed on our first real estate purchase. So yes, phase one is enough for some types of funding and financing, but typically not for the larger, more sophisticated working capital loans. Phase two is critically important. So let's go ahead and get into that. So, as you likely know, most business loans and financing takes into consideration some combination of the three C's. So, this is an important two words. As I disclosed earlier, different lenders, different financing has different underwriting. So it's not always the same. It can vary. Some sources of capital only care about one of the three C's. Some of them only care about two of the three C's. Some care about all three of the C's. I want you to just understand what those three C's are and how we legally and effectively help clients. But do we have to have all three C's to get funding? For some types, yes, but not for all types. All right, so first of all is business credit. So we're not really here to talk about personal credit. Let's talk about business credit. Business credit is considerably different than personal credit. At the most basic element, of course, it's under the business, under the EIN, not the SSN of the business owner. But business credit's different. There's different bureaus. We can build business credit really, really quickly, legally and ethically, and we can access a lot more funding leveraging business credit than we could personally. So, business credit, what is it? Well, it's essentially demonstration that the business, which business? The business that we're working with, the business has had access to credit and pays its bills timely. So it is a similar reflection of the business, like your personal credit is, but we don't want to be focused on personal credit. We want to be focused on business credit. So how does that practically happen? How does that work? So first, we help clients get their DUNS number, free and easy. Then we help them build out their D&B profile. So Dun & Bradstreet issues the DUNS numbers. It's not a competitor to the EIN or tax identification number, but it is a unique number assigned by Dun & Bradstreet. So we want to get that number, and then we want to build out the profile, because just because we have the number does not mean that the profile is optimized. In other words, it's not fully populated. Because what's going to happen? Typically, when we apply for financing or funding, typically the lender will go pull a D&B, a Dun and Bradstreet report that's going to show the company's profile. So should we make sure that that profile looks as strong as possible before we apply for credit and before the lender sees the profile? Of course. So we do that secondly. And then to strengthen it, once, and these are in order, by the way. So first we need to get the DUNS number, then we build out the profile. These are free and easy steps. Then we're going to go ahead and add real trade lines, real primary trade lines. Are we selling trade lines? No. Anyone that's wanting to sell a trade line, that could put you in jeopardy. I would not get involved with buying and selling trade lines. Because if you use a purchase trade line and apply for funding, that could be considered bank fraud. You don't want that. I don't want that. We don't do that. So we're going to add real trade lines. There's many different trade lines, real estate, equipment, automobile, credit cards, lines of credit, lots of different options. Some do require a PG, a personal guarantee. Some of them don't. We'll work with the client on this. It's not your responsibility to navigate anything in phase two. It's not. It's not your contract. It's not your responsibility. Phase one is your contract. You've outsourced for us and we'll provide this. Client, you're still getting paid off of phase two, but this is not your job. You're not supported in doing this. We do this. Now, to the extent that you want to help, be an advocate for your client, go for it. All right, so business credit is the first of the 3 C's. Any questions on business credit? All right, Amanda's asking, do we charge for this? No, we're not selling trade lines. It's built in to phase two. What I'm showing here is what's built in. Okay, so moving on. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, type it in. All right, the second C in no particular order is collateral. So the first C is credit. The second C is collateral. Well, what is collateral? Collateral are the assets to be pledged to the lender to protect the lender in case of borrower default. So when we're going through this process, if we can look at the process from the viewpoint of the lender, we'll be able to make more sense of it. If all we can think about is us or the client, then we're not seeing the whole picture. So for example, you might say, well, I don't care about protecting the lender, fuck them. Well, they're the ones that's loaning the money or extending the financing. And if they don't feel protected, they probably won't do it. It's their money. Therefore, we need to care about what they want to get approved. Now, do all sources of capital require collateral? No. Do all of them require good business credit? No. But in general, we want to build clients out so they have all 3 C's, so they have the best access to funding. So how do we go about doing that? How does the model address that in phase two? Well, we automatically provide free collateral. The collateral that we provide are accounts receivables. Now, is there other type of collateral that could be used? Sure. Could be real estate, could be equipment, some types of inventory, but that's cumbersome. So what we provide is AR, accounts receivables. That reflects legally and ethically on the client's balance sheet. It's reflected on the financials that we provide the client automatically up in phase one. So collaterals is important. It's not always necessary. Best to have it. Some sources of capital require it. We provide free collateral automatically with the shelf court. Now, if the client wants and needs more, then we can provide them more based upon their wants and needs. And we go through an analytical process to determine, do they have what's called a collateral shortfall? If they have a shortfall, we can help them with that, or we can switch to a different type of capital where that's not a barrier. What's really great, and it's kind of the icing on the cake, is not only do we provide free collateral, and then of course we can provide additional if they need, we can also help them liquidate it. liquidate it. We're going to talk more about that when we get to the bottom of the screen. That's why there's the little asterisk here. We're going to get to liquidation in a minute. All right, so far during our discussion, we're 20 minutes in, and we've talked about the importance of having a fundable business. We've talked about phase one, which is what you facilitate. You get the client under contract, they pay you for, and we do the implementation. And then phase two, it's a contract with us. We do the implementation, but frankly, we very graciously pay you 5 points of the client's capital raise. And if the reseller or branch is someone that you referred in, we pay you a 5 point override. So it's crazy lucrative, but you have no responsibility to implement phase two. We've talked about the first C, credit, and now we've talked about the second C, collateral. We are going to discuss liquidation in a minute at the bottom. Any questions other than on liquidation for the first two C's? All right, Brian has a question back on one, adding the trade lines. Well, what does it mean to, if I could highlight it properly, what does it mean to add a trade line? Well, it means that when we or any other party looks at the client's D&B profile, their Dun& Bradstreet report, it reflects the trade line. A trade line is a term that means that the business has had an extension of credit, that they have had access to financing, and it shows how they've paid it. Have they been responsible? Kind of like personal credit. So I don't know what else you're asking for, Brian, but yeah, a vehicle is recommended. A business vehicle, and you can go to Dun& Bradstreet and verify what I'm saying. A business vehicle is an excellent trade line to start with. Relatively easy to get, typically a larger ticket item, and the larger the trade lines, the more impactful they are to the Dun& Bradstreet profile. Do they have to get a car? No. If they already have a car, we can switch it from personal to business name. So we don't sell cars. We're not pushing that, but we do need to help them get trade lines, and a business automobile is an example of one. Hopefully that answered your question, Brian. All right, so let's get down to the third C. Now, the third C is linked to the second C, but we'll describe that in a moment. So capacity is the technical term. It essentially means cash flow. Unfortunately, both of those start with a C. So this is where we're showing the lender or the extender of credit that we can afford it. Now, there's two ways that we can show that we can afford the money that we want to borrow or the financing that we want to access. We can either show them in the future, here's how we're going to be able to afford it. We build that in, and that's part of what's provided in phase one. And then secondly, or we can show them bank deposits. And that shows that, yes, we have enough cash flow coming through now. You might say, well, this sounds like a problem, right? If we're going to go try to get a client a big loan, and if they're an early stage business and their current bank deposits doesn't support it yet, that's a deal killer. Well, no. We need to build the package, the loan package, which is what we're talking about here, so we can leverage either or both of these. Is it best to have both? Sure. But can we get funding without bank deposits and only with projections? Yeah, in some cases. But remember, we're going to be helping them with bank deposits. We're helping them with all three C's. So let's get down to letter B. So we assist with both. So I've already mentioned we provide automatically the financial projections. They don't have to ask for it. They don't have to put any effort or work into it. Comes automatically, normally in about 7 days from the time that they get their shelf quote from you. We can modify that and change it as they want, but that comes automatically. As far as helping with bank deposits, we have two strategies to help them with that. And I guess technically three, really, we should add a third. But one of which is we can liquidate the AR, which again, we're going to talk about in a moment. We made reference to here. So let's take with the ESP, the Entrepreneur Starter Pack. Let's take Alicia, beautiful Alicia. Alicia's on the training today. So Alicia gets a client a Shelf Corp through the ESP, so it comes with 20,000 of quick cash. So then in about 7 days, we're able to provide those deliverables to the client. Now they have a balance sheet that shows they have assets, they have collateral, and now we're going to offer to help Alicia's client with liquidating the AR because it's real AR. It's not made up. It's real AR. It's accounts receivables that there's been a bill of sale. The ownership has transferred to the client. So the money now is owed to the client. And so, as a licensed, bonded, and insured collection agency, if the client wishes, then we can liquidate that and turn that into bank deposits. So, in other words, we're collecting the money that's owed. Does that make sense? Or anyone have questions on that? Just type it into the Q&A. Secondly, we also have the Opportunity Fund. And the Opportunity Fund, I guess, is best stated as it's not debt, it's earned income. It's running the business, right? So when we're providing this business up in phase one, it's a real business that's ready to start making money. So the business plan describes how, and again, we can change the business plan as the client wants, but it's a real business. It's like if you went and bought the donut shop, let's say the donut shop owner in your town is selling his or her donut shop. Could you buy the donut shop? Sure. Could you operate the donut shop, sell donuts and make money? Well, yeah. So when we are providing these shelf corps, they're designed to make money right away. And so we call that the Opportunity Fund. So there's two ways that we help with capacity. We can provide collateral and we can help them build their business credit. So those three C's are important. So I'm going to get down to liquidation in a moment, but any other questions that any of you have on the three C's? There's some key points to remember though. Number one is going back to the beginning. If we want business funding, we need to have a fundable business, but there's not a singular definition of that. Different lenders have different underwriting criteria. You and I, resellers branch offices, we're going to provide first phase one, the Shelf Corp. And if they're using the ESP platform, they're getting all of this plus 20,000. And then phase two is what we do. You're paid from it, but it's not your responsibility to support the service or to do the work. And we're going to work with the client, figure out what type of capital raise they want, what they want to use the money for. We use our proprietary lender match software to find the right lender based upon their circumstances. And then we want to build out the loan package so they qualify. And that could be involved with any combination of the three C's. So do all lenders require all three C's? No. They're going to require at least one of the three C's. Some require one, some require two. But what we want to do because of the grant is help clients build out all three C's. So that gives them maximum ability to raise capital and the breadth of options are broad instead of restricted. Any questions on the three C's? Okay, and Doug brings up a good point, and it's actually where we're going to close. So the liquidation is an evolving process for us. We have been licensed, bonded, and insured for quite a while now, but we are pivoting. We are rebuilding this function within our organization. And some of you that have been on the trainings or listened to the trainings heard. So one of the things that we've decided to do is to staff it differently. So we're actively in the process of hiring licensed attorneys and some support staff, experienced paralegals, but mainly licensed attorneys that are going to staff our collections department. You might say, collections? Why are these guys talking about collections? Well, if we're providing AR and the client wants us to help them liquidate the AR, which means collect the money from the debtors. So that is collections. So as stated here, number one, we're in, I wouldn't say the early stages, we're in the final stages of getting ready to launch a much more aggressive, of course, still legal, in-house. So all these attorneys will be full-time employees working 40 hours a week. They get PTO, they get benefits. So in-house collections team. So we're building up, actively building up, and that's some of the meetings we have tomorrow. I meet with Bilal tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. and then shortly after I'll be working on getting some offers out to some new legal team members. So that's number one. And then the second point is once if the client determines if they want us to liquidate their AR or not, they may just say, no, just leave it on the balance sheet. But if they want us to turn it from AR into cash, so it's reflected as bank deposits, then that's where we would come in and we will go pursue the debtors legally and ethically. But we have some very, very innovative approaches, but compliant approaches of how to collect that money. So we'll ask the debtors to pay nicely and professionally. And then if they don't, we can force them to pay. With that being said, one of the changes that's going to happen here soon, I would assume around November 1st, once we have that in-house team prepared, is we're going to create a separation. So with that being said, we'll have a collections team. You could call it a compliance team or a collections team. They will only work with collection accounts. So if we have, let's say we have a client and the client has not paid as agreed, then our operations team will have a flag on that debtor's account, that client's account in our CRM, our system. And then our operations team will not be able to work with them at all. They're going to have to go over to the compliance team, the collections team to resolve it. What's happened in the past is we've had people that weren't paying as promised, but they still wanted to be serviced, right? They wanted all the operational benefits. You know, they wanted us to do all of these things, even though they've not paid as promised. So my point, simply put, is we're going to have two divisions: an operations division, which will continue to be under our nonprofit, under 509 South Pacific. Everything we talked about is going to be the same for operations, but for the debt collection, the collections, the compliance department, it'll be separate and distinct, a different phone number, and anyone that's in the collections department will not be able to be served by the operations team until resolved. So let's say you're Doug. Doug's on here. And so let's say Doug refers in a client. Doug's client has paid him for the shelf court, whatever price Doug wants to charge. And Doug's a sales machine. I think Doug's working on like 60 hot leads right now, if I saw the email correct, or 66, he says. So Doug handles this. Client comes in. What does Doug want from us? Doug wants us to go get that client funding, as much funding as the client wants. And so Doug can make the 5% on the back end. Well, let's say that Doug's client finishes phase one, we have them in phase two, and they don't comply. They're not doing what they promised to do. So we don't want to continue to battle with clients. On the operational side, we'll put the flag on the account, we'll transfer Doug, in this example, Doug's client over to an assigned attorney, and that assigned attorney will work with Doug's client to bring them back into compliance. Once they're back in compliance, then we'll work with them again. So I think that's going to be much better, because right now the commingling of the operational element and the collection element is not preferred. So with that being said, again, no Zoom tomorrow. No Zoom tomorrow. Meeting with Bilal at 8 a.m. tomorrow, and he's flying in, I think today, right, Bilal? So meeting with him at 8 o'clock tomorrow, and then I have to finish up some interviews to get some job offers out to some attorneys. Any questions, comments, concerns on today's Zoom? Carla says, okay, so yeah, so I don't think I explained it well. So Carla is one of our top resellers. She's a machine, and I mean that in a positive way. So let's say that Carla brings in a client called Stephen. So Carla and Stephen come to terms on phase one. Stephen buys a shelf court from Carla for whatever price, whatever processing fee she wants to charge. Then we deliver that normally within 7 days, and then we offer Stephen assistance in getting financing, which 99.9% of the people want that. So then we get them under contract to pay us 10% of the capital raise, of which 10% of that's going out to the field. 5% would go to Carla, and then 5% would go to whoever brought Carla in. I forget. I think it might have been Corinthian, but I don't remember. So then we're doing this work. And so if the client, let's say the client gets an initial round of funding of $50,000. Let's say Stephen gets 50,000. And so then we invoice Stephen for 10% of the 50,000 because that's the deal. That's the performance fee. We need to collect that so we can pay Carla and Corinthian. So then let's say Steven says, no, I don't have the money to pay. And we're like, well, dude, you just got 50,000. You promised to pay us 10% performance fee. You need to pay it. And let's say he slow pays or he doesn't pay or he short pays, whatever. That would be an example where that client, we don't want to battle with, we don't want to hassle with. We're just going to move that client over into the collections team. We won't be working with the client operationally until that's resolved. The assigned attorney will reach out, make sure that Stephen understands the contract, make sure that we're doing on the operational side everything that we promised. Again, this isn't a problem to Carla, but I'm just explaining because of her question. It's not a responsibility of the reseller or branch office. And then our legal team will get, in this case, Stephen back compliant. Then the client will go back to the operational side, and then we'll fulfill the project. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, so again, no Zoom tomorrow. We'll be back on Friday. If you need any personalized assistance, recommend texting us, 903-347-8042. We're very busy, which is a good thing, but we're adding quite a few new staff members, and pretty much everyone we're hiring at this point will either be a licensed attorney or an experienced paralegal. So really strong people coming aboard. Thanks for your patience. Let us know if you need anything else. Have a great day. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.